Hi, this is Dr. G. In this video, we're going to look at how to recognize a perfect square trinomial and apply the square root property to a quadratic equation that has a perfect square trinomial. So I just want to remind you what a perfect square trinomial looks like. So a perfect square trinomial is actually the square of a binomial. So a binomial has two terms added together, so a plus b, and a perfect square squares a binomial. So if you want to FOIL out that a plus b times a plus b, you get a trinomial. You get the trinomial a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. Or you could have a minus b squared. That's another binomial. And when you square that out, you get a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. So there's two types of perfect square trinomials. So the right-hand side of each of these equations is a trinomial, and it's a perfect square. So let's look at an example. So in this example, we're asked to solve the equation d squared plus 10d plus 25 equals negative 18. And this is in the homework section on the square root property. So somehow we have to be able to apply the square root property. But the square root property says we have to have something squared equals a number. So look at the left-hand side of this equation. We want to see if this is a perfect square. So you look at the first term, d squared, and obviously that's a perfect square. You look at the last term, 25, and we know that's a perfect square. So then we just have to check the middle term. Is that middle term 2 times a times b, or 2 times d times 5? And it is, because it's 10 times d, which is 2 times d times 5. So that is a perfect square trinomial. So what we want to do then is write it as a binomial squared. So since we know what a and b are, a is d and b is 5, we can write it as d plus 5 squared is equal to negative 18. And now we know exactly how to solve that using the square root property. We just break it into two equations. D plus 5 equals the positive square root of negative 18, or d plus 5 equals the negative square root of negative 18. Now we know the square root of negative 18 is an imaginary number, so let's simplify it. So the first equation is d plus 5 is equal to 3 square root of 2 times I. The second equation is d plus 5 equals negative 3 square root of 2 times I. And then if we subtract 5 from both sides of both of those equations, we get our two solutions. We get negative 5 plus 3 root 2 I, and negative 5 minus 3 root 2 I. So watch out for perfect square trinomials and write the trinomial as a binomial squared, and you'll be able to apply the square root property. All right, happy studying.